The Galactic Union had many species, each with their own pride and power. When humanity joined, they brought hope and ideas that changed everything. For many years, humans helped rebuild worlds destroyed by war. They shared technology, medicine, and art. People from Earth worked side by side with alien engineers and soldiers. But soon other species began to see humans as too bold. They said humans were loud, emotional, and restless. They called them the troublemakers of the stars. Yet every time a crisis came, it was the humans who stayed and helped. Commander Ethan Brooks had seen all of this. He was calm and quiet, but his eyes always watched and remembered. He stood beside Ambassador Laura Gray, who spoke for Earth in the Council. She was not angry, but tired. Every meeting was full of blame. Every plan made by humans was doubted. Every victory they brought was called luck. The Council leaders from other worlds whispered that humans were a danger because they cared too much about freedom. Laura knew they were afraid of something they did not understand. Humanity was growing fast, and that scared them. The Council passed new rules that limited human colonies. They said it was to protect peace, but everyone knew it was control. They blocked trade routes to the outer colonies and cut access to resources. Human ships were stopped and searched without reason. When Laura spoke about it, they ignored her words. She warned that this was a mistake. She told them that humans were not slaves or servants. But the Council only smiled and said Earth should be grateful for being part of the Union. Ethan stood behind her as she spoke, his hands behind his back, his face calm, but his heart heavy. He had fought in battles that saved Council worlds. He had lost friends protecting those who now called humans unstable. When the meeting ended, Laura turned to him and said quietly that something was changing. He agreed. The corridors of the Council halls were cold and full of whispers. Even allies avoided human delegates now. The media across the stars began to tell stories that painted humans as greedy and dangerous. Some colonies began to suffer. Cargo ships carrying food and medicine were delayed for weeks. Children on Mars and Europa went hungry. The Council called it a technical issue. Ethan knew better. He began to meet secretly with human fleet captains. They talked about what would happen if Earth had to stand alone again. They remembered how their ancestors had faced the dark ages and wars and still survived. Humanity had always stood up after every fall. That spirit was still alive. One night on Luna Base, Laura and Ethan looked down at the blue curve of Earth below them. She said she still believed the Council could change. He said maybe, but not soon enough to save their people. A message arrived from the outer colonies asking for help. Pirates attacked supply ships, and the Council refused to send aid. Ethan wanted to go, but the Council ordered all human ships to stay docked. That was when he understood that they were being pushed out slowly. They were meant to break, to give up their place among the stars. But humans never gave up. Laura wrote her final speech to the Council. It was short and calm. She said that respect could not be begged from those who refused to see it. She said humanity would not fight for a place that was already theirs by effort and sacrifice. Ethan stood behind her when she delivered it. The alien leaders watched, thinking she was bluffing. When the speech ended, she removed her insignia and left the chamber. Ethan followed her. The human delegation left the Council halls in silence. The guards did not stop them, and that silence was heavier than any insult. Back on Luna Base, the command centers came alive. Quietly, ships began to prepare for departure. Families packed what they could. Colonists from all over human space began to move. They were leaving the Union. No one announced it. There were no grand speeches. Only quiet determination filled the air. Ethan walked through the hangar, watching engineers check the engines. He felt both pride and sadness. He knew what this meant. Humanity was stepping into the unknown once again. But this time they were not running from fear. They were walking away from those who took them for granted. Laura stood beside him, looking at the stars. She said maybe someday the Council would understand what they had lost. Ethan nodded. For now their job was simple. Protect their people. Find a new home. Build again. As the first ships lifted off from Luna Base, the engines lit the sky with a silver glow. The Council still thought humans would come back begging. They did not know that when humans leave, they build something better, and one day the galaxy would remember that moment and realize what had truly been lost when Earth turned away. When the humans left the Council, there was no sound in the Great Hall, only the echo of footsteps fading away. And yet that silence spread across the galaxy like a storm waiting to break. For a while, no one cared or noticed. They thought humanity would return soon, begging for forgiveness. The Council believed humans could not survive without their trade and support. But they were wrong on Luna Base. Commander Ethan Brooks began organizing the fleets into new groups, each with one goal: to guide every colony safely beyond the border. Ambassador Laura Gray stayed busy with messages from distant worlds, colonies that were afraid and confused. Some wanted to stay, and some wanted to follow Earth. She told them that no one would be forced. They were free to choose, and that word free began to mean something new among humans. Engineers, scientists, and families worked day and night. Ships once used for patrol and diplomacy were refitted into long-range transports. They were quiet, fast, and strong. Every part was built with care. There was no hurry, only purpose. Children played in corridors while adults prepared for journeys across unknown space. The stars beyond the border looked endless and waiting. Ethan walked the decks every day, checking progress. He was proud but also tired. Each time a ship left Luna Base, he watched until its light faded into the black, and he whispered to himself that humanity was not running away. They were moving forward. Laura often came to stand beside him. She never spoke much, but he could see the strength in her eyes. She had become the voice of calm for their people. And even those who doubted began to believe in her. When the last fleet was ready, the Council finally reacted. They sent orders demanding the humans return. They warned that leaving Union space without permission was a crime. Ethan read the message and deleted it. No reply was sent. He knew they would not understand soon. Union patrol ships appeared near Mars, demanding to board the human transports. Ethan gave orders to stand down and not engage. But when the patrols fired warning shots, the humans responded not with weapons but with silence. They turned their ships and left the system without firing a single round. That quiet defiance shook the Union more than any battle could. Over the next months, human signals vanished one by one. From known space, the Council tried to track them, but failed. They called emergency meetings, arguing about how to handle the situation. Some wanted to chase them. Others wanted to ignore them. Laura's final speech still echoed through those halls. Some of the younger Council members began to question their leaders, asking what would happen if the humans were gone for good. Trade routes slowed. Repairs took longer. The great orbital docks of the Union, once filled with human engineers, now sat half empty. Their precision and creativity were unmatched, and now gone ships began to fail. More often, systems became unreliable. Still, the Council tried to act proud. They told themselves that the humans were foolish. They said the Union was stronger without them, but fear was growing underneath their pride on the far edge of space. Ethan's fleets were finding new worlds there, where planets untouched by war, with air and water and endless skies. Humans named them with simple names: Hope, Haven, Dawn. They built new colonies in silence, using what they had learned from years of service in the Union. Each new settlement was planned, with care, not to rule, but to live in peace. They traded with small independent worlds, giving what they could and taking only what was needed. Many species began to respect them for their fairness and skill. Rumors began to spread of the human dominion, though no one knew what it truly was, only that it was growing and united under one flag. Laura sent messages to those willing to listen. She told them humanity sought no war, only freedom. But the Council grew angry. They declared the human territories off limits, warning that any ship entering would be treated as a threat. Still, independent traders continued to visit human space, quietly bringing news and goods. They told stories of vast construction rings around stars and fleets unlike anything the Union could build. One trader said he saw a planet covered in green fields and shining cities, all built in less than a decade. He said the humans called it New Earth, and that it was more beautiful than the old one back in Union space. Things worsened every year. Their ships failed more often. Without human technicians, their engines lost efficiency. The Council tried to copy human designs, but nothing worked right. They began to fight among themselves, blaming one another for the decline. Ethan heard these reports through his intelligence network. He said little, but his officers knew he was watching carefully. He did not wish harm on them, but he would not allow humanity to be dragged back under their rule. Laura spent her days guiding the new alliance. She worked with other leaders from free worlds and slowly built a web of trust. It was not easy, but she believed peace built on respect was stronger than control. One evening, she visited Ethan aboard the flagship Dominion. They stood by the viewing glass looking at the stars. She asked if he ever missed the council. He said he missed the hope that it once held, but not what it had become. She smiled and said, maybe one day they would understand. He said maybe, but it would not matter because by then humanity would have outgrown their need for approval outside the ship. The great fleet of silver vessels moved like a quiet storm across the void. No one in the Union knew where they were heading. Some said they were building something vast beyond the edge of the maps, something that would change everything. Laura looked at the stars and said softly that humans had finally done what no one else dared to do. They had chosen to be alone and free. Ethan nodded and said freedom always had a price and humanity had paid it willingly. As the Dominion fleet continued its silent journey into the unknown, the galaxy began to realize that the absence of humans was not a small thing. It was a wound spreading through the heart of the Union, and one day they would see how deeply they had depended on the very people they once called reckless dreamers. Years passed after the humans left the Union, and the galaxy slowly began to feel their absence in every small way. At first the Council refused to admit it. They still held their meetings and spoke as if nothing had changed. But the cracks began to show. Starships broke down more often. Stations ran out of supplies. Trade slowed. The great systems that once depended on human maintenance and creativity began to fail. The Council tried to replace them with their own engineers, but it was never. The same humans had a strange way of thinking that machines could not copy. They mixed logic with instinct. They saw solutions that others missed without them. Everything became slower, colder, and less alive. The media tried to hide it. But soon everyone noticed, and many began to whisper that the Union was dying from the inside on one small world. A former human ally named Captain Relo watched the markets collapse. He had traded with humans for years and missed their presence. They always paid on time. They always kept their word. Now he had to deal with Union merchants who argued over every coin. He began to hear rumors of human ships seen at the edge of known space, sleek and fast and brighter than anything the Union ever built. Some said they were guarding a new empire. Others said they were only protecting their own kind. No one knew the truth far beyond the Union border. The human dominion was growing fast. Admiral Ethan Brooks commanded from the great ship Dominion. It was larger than any ship he had ever seen built by humans alone. It carried a fleet and a city within it. People lived, worked, and dreamed inside its long corridors. They no longer spoke of the Union with anger. They simply forgot it. Their lives were filled with purpose. New colonies spread across many worlds, each one carefully chosen and protected. No one was rich or poor. They shared what they had and worked for the future. Laura Gray moved between the worlds, speaking to new leaders. She had become the symbol of peace and strength. She never shouted or demanded, yet everyone listened when she spoke. Her words carried calm and hope. She reminded them that humanity must not become like those who once looked down on them. They must build better, not bitter. Ethan agreed, but part of him still carried the weight of what had been done. He had seen how easily pride could destroy even the strongest alliances. One evening, as the Dominion orbited a new colony, he stood by the viewing glass watching. The planet below it was green with oceans and mountains glowing under twin suns. He thought of Earth and wondered if it still looked the same. Laura joined him and said that new worlds were not replacements but beginnings. He nodded and said, maybe that was what humanity always did. They began again when others thought they were finished in Union space. The situation became worse every year. Food shortages spread. Trade routes collapsed. Entire sectors went dark without human engineers. Their reactors became unstable. Accidents increased and colonies were abandoned. The Council argued constantly. Some leaders blamed the humans for leaving. Others said they had been driven away. Still, they did nothing to fix it. They sent a few ships to search for humans, hoping to find them and beg for help. Those ships never returned. Some said they found the Dominion and were told to turn back. Others said they were destroyed. No one knew the truth. But fear spread faster than news. More and more independent systems began to leave the Union. Some joined together in small alliances. Others tried to contact the humans. Secretly, traders who dared to travel far beyond the border brought back strange stories. They spoke of giant orbital rings, surrounding stars of fleets that could move faster than light itself. They spoke of human worlds shining with cities and forests built in perfect balance. They said the humans no longer used money the way the Union did. They traded through trust and shared technology freely. They called it the Dominion Compact, and it was fair to all who followed it. The Council refused to believe these tales, but their own spies confirmed enough to make them afraid. Admiral Ethan knew about these spies. He allowed them to see only what he wanted to show. He did not wish to start a war. He only wanted them to understand that humanity was no longer weak one day. Laura received a message from an old ally, a council member named Yelra, who had once supported her. She begged for help. Her world was suffering from famine and the Union refused to send aid. Laura brought the message to Ethan. He looked at her and asked if she trusted Yelra. She said yes. Ethan agreed to send supplies under one condition, that the humans would do it openly without hiding when the Dominion fleet arrived in Yelra's system. The sight of it filled the skies. Giant silver ships descended quietly and began delivering aid without asking for payment. The people wept and cheered. Some even kneeled in gratitude. The council called it an act of defiance, but they could do nothing. Their fleets were too weak. The broadcast of humans helping spread across the galaxy, and everyone saw who the real builders were. Again, hope began to stir among those who had lost it. When the fleet left Yelra's world, Ethan stood before his officers and said, this was the beginning of something greater. He told them they would not rule through fear, but through example. They would show the galaxy what unity and respect truly meant. Laura smiled and said that was what humanity always wanted, not control. Just understanding. Far away in the council chambers, leaders argued in panic. They feared that humans were rising too fast, that soon the entire galaxy would follow them, and the fear was right. Humanity had built a new path, one without them, and the more the council resisted, the smaller their power became. Ethan and Laura stood side by side watching the stars, and they both knew that the Union was already collapsing. Not by war, but by the weight of its own arrogance. Humanity did not have to destroy it. They only had to keep moving forward and let time do the rest. As the Dominion fleet continued to explore the dark edges of the galaxy, the name of humanity became a legend once again, not as conquerors but as creators, the ones who left when the galaxy stopped listening and who built something far stronger in silence. The years turned and the galaxy had changed, but not in the way the council had hoped. Their worlds were falling apart. Their fleets were weak, their people restless. They had built their empire on human strength, and now that strength was gone, and so was their balance. The Union that once stretched across hundreds of systems had begun to break piece by piece. Worlds that had once praised the council now turned their backs on it. They looked to the humans for guidance. Even if the humans had not asked for it, the council grew desperate and afraid. Some members suggested that they must make peace before it was too late. Others said they should strike first and remind humanity of who held power. But deep inside they knew they no longer held any power worth fearing. Admiral Ethan Brooks sat in his command room aboard the Dominion reading reports from his scouts. Union ships were gathering near the border. The council was preparing a show of force, perhaps to frighten them into obedience. He looked out the window at the stars and thought about the wars he had fought in the past. He had seen what fear did to civilizations. It made them blind and cruel. Laura Gray entered the room, her face calm. As always, she asked if it was true that the Union fleet was coming. He nodded and said they were moving toward the frontier. She looked down for a long moment and then said that she had expected this. She told him that humans must not be the ones to fire first. He agreed the Dominion fleet was ready, but he hoped it would not be needed. They had built something worth protecting, and he did not want to stain it with blood. When the Union fleet crossed into human space, their arrival was met with silence. The human ships did not move. They only watched. The Union admiral sent a message demanding that humans surrender their outer colonies, claiming they were built on stolen systems. Ethan did not reply. Instead, he ordered the Dominion to activate its outer defense ring, a vast network of satellites and stations that surrounded the border like a wall made of light. The Union fleet stopped as their sensors filled with strange readings. They saw human constructs bigger than anything they had ever imagined, structures that pulsed with energy too powerful to measure. Then one of the Union captains panicked and fired a warning shot. It hit one of the outer stations. The explosion echoed across the void for a moment. Nothing happened. Then the human fleet came alive. Thousands of ships emerged from behind the defense ring, sleek and silent. Their engines glowing blue, they did not fire. Instead, they surrounded the Union fleet completely. The Union admiral sent another message asking for terms. Ethan finally answered his. Voice calm and quiet, he said, "You came to our home without respect, you fired the first shot, and yet we will not destroy you. Leave now and remember what mercy looks like." The message was broadcast across all channels. The Union fleet hesitated some. Captains wanted to fight, but their admiral ordered retreat. He could see there was no victory here as they turned to leave. The humans did not follow. They simply watched them go, and then the defense ring dimmed again. The news of what happened spread. Through the galaxy faster than light, the Council tried to hide it, but everyone knew the truth. The Union had been defeated without a single shot from the humans. Their strength was unmatched, but their control even more terrifying, because it was so calm they had no need for war to prove their power. Laura spoke to the galaxy soon after. Her speech was simple. She said humanity wished for peace. Not conquest, but peace would come only with respect. She said they would not bow again, and that every species willing to treat others as equals would be welcome in the new order. Her words were soft, but they carried a weight no one could ignore. The smaller worlds began to reach out to the Dominion one by one. They joined the Human Alliance. They traded shared knowledge and helped each other grow. The Dominion became a symbol of fairness and hope. Ethan continued to guard the borders, but he spent more time helping new worlds build defenses and industries. The humans did not take resources. They shared them. That made the people of the galaxy trust them even more. The Council, on the other hand, was collapsing. Their worlds were starving their fleets, mutinied. Their leaders accused each other of betrayal one night as the Dominion floated above a new human colony. Ethan stood on the deck watching the stars. Laura came to him and said the Council would soon fall. He said it was already gone, only its shadow remained. She said she wondered if the galaxy would ever learn. He said maybe, not, but that was not their concern anymore. He looked down at the planet below, covered in green and light, and said their duty was to protect what they had built for those who would come after them. She nodded and said, "Then we have done what we came to do outside the great ship." The stars glowed softly and the human fleets continued their silent patrol. The galaxy had seen their strength and knew that the humans had become something greater than anyone had expected. They were not conquerors, they were guardians, and that truth spread across space faster than any fear could. The Council tried one last time to call for negotiation, but it was too late. They had nothing left to offer. The Union that once ruled had been reduced to scattered worlds begging for help, and the humans helped them, but on their own terms, quietly, without pride or anger, for they had learned that real power was not in destruction, but in restraint. Ethan and Laura watched as one by one the old Council worlds accepted peace under the Dominion flag, not as subjects but as equals, and in that moment the galaxy began to heal. Time moved forward and the galaxy slowly accepted the rise of the human Dominion. The Council was gone, and their old worlds were now struggling to find their place without control. Humanity never sought revenge. They only acted with fairness and reason. New alliances formed around human colonies and trade routes began to flow again, connecting worlds that had been isolated for years. Admiral Ethan Brooks stood on the bridge of the Dominion flagship, looking at the stars. He thought about all they had lost and all they had gained. Humanity had walked away from the Union, and in doing so had built something stronger than anyone imagined. Ambassador Laura Gray joined him. She looked at the ships moving in formation around distant planets and said that they had finally achieved what they wanted. He nodded and said it had taken time, patience, and care, but they had shown the galaxy what humans could do. Their new colonies were thriving with farms, cities and schools and hospitals, all built with human skill and the help of friendly species. They did not rule with fear, but guided with trust and example. Many species now looked to the Dominion for advice, not orders. They asked how to rebuild, how to trade fairly, and how to protect. Their people. Humans helped willingly and taught them what they knew. The stories of human engineering and diplomacy spread to even the most remote worlds. The galaxy began to understand that humans had never been weak. They had only been underestimated, One day, a messenger arrived from a distant system that had once been under the council. He told Ethan that their world had been suffering famine and conflict since the humans left. They asked for help. The Dominion sent supplies and engineers, and when the fleet arrived, the people wept. They had never expected humans to care for them. After so many years of neglect, the engineers built farm schools and energy stations within months, and the world slowly came alive again. People began to work. Together, they learned the value of cooperation and trust, and the Dominion fleet left only when the system could sustain itself. Laura spoke to the people through a communication broadcast. She said that humans would help but not control, that every world must find its own way, but that they would never be abandoned again. Ethan walked with her through one of the new colonies. Children ran past them, laughing. Some of them were from species that had never seen humans before. They looked at them with curiosity and respect. Laura smiled and said that this is what mattered, that life and growth must be shared. Ethan nodded. He remembered the old council and the arrogance they carried. They had taken humans for granted, and now they had paid the price, but it was not cruelty that humans had taught. It was the lesson that respect and fairness are stronger than fear and hatred. As the years went on, the Dominion grew in strength, not by force, but by example. New human worlds joined willingly. Colonies from old Union worlds asked to join alliances peacefully, and they were welcomed under human guidance. Everyone was equal and free, yet safe and protected. The galaxy began to prosper once more. Trade routes were secure, technologies shared, openly medicine distributed to where it was needed, and conflicts resolved through discussion and cooperation. Human fleets continued to patrol quietly, guarding the borders from threats, without interfering in the lives of others unless needed. Ethan and Laura often stood together watching the stars. They did not speak much because they knew words were not necessary. The people had learned the value of what humans offered. Humanity had done what no one else could survive. The years of neglect and fear had passed, and now the galaxy was finally stronger for it. One evening, as they looked at a world filled with light and green, Laura said softly that they had finally done it. He looked at her and said that humans had always done this to themselves. They had never been cruel, only determined, and the galaxy had misunderstood them for far too long. She nodded and said that now it would remember. She looked out at the stars and smiled. Ethan joined her in silence. The fleet moved smoothly through the void, carrying people and hope to every system that asked for it. And the Dominion became known not as conquerors, but as guardians, as teachers and as partners. The old Union was a lesson, and nothing more. And humans never forgot what had brought them here. The stars stretched endlessly, and humanity continued forward. They had left when taken for granted and had returned stronger, wiser, and full of purpose. The galaxy had learned that respect could not be demanded, only earned. And when humanity returned, it was with a calm power and grace that no one could match. Every world under human protection prospered and thrived, and the story of how humans walked away and built a new order spread across the galaxy as a warning and a lesson that some beings should never be underestimated. And the name of humanity became a symbol of hope, courage, and fairness for all who lived among the stars.